Welcome to MMA Fancast and Happy New Year to you, 2023. Kicked off with a bang, particularly if you're the next guest on the show. Put your hands together for Josh, the Flyin Hawaiian Perreira. Josh, welcome back to the show.
How you doing, brother?
Doing very well. I'm cracking myself up with my introduction of you, but I got excited. So anyhow, like I said in the intro, you got 2023 off to a career start because you transitioned after 7 amateur wins in a row. You turned pro January 7th. So the first week of January of 2023, you got a win by rear naked choke. Let's talk a little bit about what you learned coming out of your amateur career, because I know we've had you on before. You talked about what you had learned and kind of what you were looking to transition to pro. But let's talk, kind of recap your amateur career, and then we'll jump in to the fight from last week.
Yeah, absolutely. Started off my amateur career taking a fight on a week's notice, being at Immortal for about 2 weeks. And that was, I feel, it was my most important fight because I lost and I had to learn a lot. Grappling, striking, how to mix everything together. And ever since then, working with Matt Brown, Mark Coleman, Lucas Siebert, Miles Robinson, Cameron Jenkins, so many people, even going back home and training with Hawaii Elite and the BJ Penn gym in Kakako and Kailua, just bringing it all together. The amateur, my amateur career, different states have different rules. So of course, in Ohio, no kicks to the head, no knees to the head, no elbows at all. In Kentucky, elbows to the body, kicks to the head, knees to the head. And then in Pennsylvania, especially for advanced amateurs, same rules apply as Ohio. But number one thing I had to learn was to control myself, because even though I was training still while as an amateur, I was still throwing elbows, still throwing knees to the head, still throwing kicks to the head, throwing everything, but I just had to control it. So for my pro debut, I let it go. I let it fly. I didn't have to hold myself back with any amateur rule set, and I was able to be a lot more creative. I was throwing my capoeira style kicks, landing them, incorporating a lot more grappling up against the fence, and being able to throw elbows was very fun as well. And just can't wait to get back into it. Hopefully, LFA and May, hopefully.
Okay, so we'll get to that because you're already talking about LFA and May. That's a really big organization. You made the transition to pro. I think it's really great for all young fighters, particularly either just looking to take their first couple amateur fights or even in their amateur career, for that humility that you said, that your first fight, which was a loss, was your most important fight to date, because it showed you that you had a lot to learn. And then obviously you put the work in, you trained with some of the best coaches, some of the best trainers, some of the best partners as well. And so I think that all goes to kind of what development is. And for those that are watching this that aren't really sure, because typically when you just watch the big pro events, you don't ever see amateurs. Sometimes people don't understand the rule sets. But I think you did a great job explaining the amateur rule sets are there to allow somebody to develop and kind of learn skills as they go, as opposed to kind of getting overwhelmed. Virginia, their amateur rule set is a pro rule set, which I don't think makes a lot of sense. You could be 0-0 amateur, right, and then you're getting knee in the head on the ground. So you obviously developed your career and transitioned to pro. Talk about the first round. It was your first round to go 5 minutes. You ended up finishing it in second. So let's just talk about the first round. Walk me through it. Kind of what was it like going 5 minutes in one clip, as opposed to getting a break after 2 or 3 minutes?
Right. Cardio was no issue. I feel like training with Coleman and Matt is even scarier than the fight itself. But I paced myself. I felt like my gas tank was uh, very, very good in this fight, but there's always room for improvement. Established the jab, the body kick. Yet again, he was a southpaw, so I stayed to the outside of that lead foot of his, and allowed him to circle into my right hand. And then he started backing up, which is I thought he would be the one pressuring me forward, because we watched a few of his fights to get ready for this one. And yet again, a huge shout out to Greg Spearman for taking this fight on short notice as well. Um, uh, Very tough opponent, good takedown defense, very strong. But anyway, controlled the striking, and then he threw a left hand, closed the distance. We started to clinch. I went to grab a single, just to throw it out there. We've been working a lot of wrestling with the DB Trained and Coleman and Cameron Knight and Jimmy Lobo. But he was able to reverse me, push me up against the fence. I was able to get a deep whizzer and almost like a hip toss or a whizzer throw. I got him to his back, started throwing some elbows, got some right hands to the body. I transitioned to his back, and I wasn't able to get the body lock in. Just threatening the rear naked, got a few shots in, and got back up on the feet, started jabbing again, jab, jab, jab. I started feeling a little loose, spinning back fist. He was really tired up against the fence, so I just started dropping my hands. That's one thing I got to work on too, just more control here. When I have fun, I start dropping a little bit more. But anyway, I threw the left hand. He threw a teep. I caught it, switched back into orthodox. Right hand down the middle. I saw him get stunned, and he dropped his hand. I went for the spinning back fist, landed, went into the clinch up against the fence, and then landed a cartwheel kick off of the engagement after we separated. Grazed his chin. If it landed deeper, he would have been over. And after that, kept pressuring him back with the jab, caught the kick, took him down for a moment. And yeah, that was the end of the first round. Pacing felt great. Gas tank felt good. Just like Coleman always says, domination every single second. Kill him with cardio.
Well, his fight nickname was the Hammer. So if there's anybody that's going to tell you to dominate, it's Mark the Hammer Coleman for sure. It's also interesting. It's always cool for me as an interviewer. Some fighters, just like you pointed out, can kind of break down their fight sequentially, like you just did in the round. Like this, some fighters they more go off emotion. Like, well, it started out good, then it kind of got tough, then it ended. Like so. It's just interesting how fighters. Some of them are more cerebral in their approach. Some are more emotional. But anything works that works. But talk to me a little bit before we get to round two. How confident do you have to be to throw a cartwheel kick? For people that could kind of understand, the name is obvious. You have to put your hands down on the mat in order to throw a cartwheel kick. So the distance, the spacing, your cardio has to be great because you're inverting yourself. So what was the confidence level there to throw a cartwheel kick? And was it the first time you've been able to do that because of the pro rules? Like kind of what led you to throw that?
We always we spar a lot at Immortal, and I try and get as much sparring in as possible. Not even just like trying to crack each other, just more of the timing and the movement. So I've been in a lot of scenarios where I've been in the clinch up against the fence, and just that small amount of space, like and I throw it up. Sometimes I would do it off of catching a kick or something like that, but the opportunity presented itself. I had thrown a couple head kicks in the first round and saw his reaction. So I was like, okay, maybe I'll feint and go for it. I was very confident in it. And yet again, I throw it all the time in sparring. I feel that to be a good striker, just to be a good MMA fighter, a good fighter in general, if it's boxing, if it's MMA, if it's any sport, you have to be creative. And after a while, the techniques just flowed out like a faucet, just I saw it happen. I was like, oh shoot, I got him. He looks a little stunned. I'll close in. I then feinted the cross. He brought his hands up, and I threaded the needle with the elbow right down the middle. But yet again, just my confidence is always very high with my striking arts, my grappling as well. Uh, Man, I just want to get back in there already, but just yeah, just very confident in my abilities.
Clearly that shows. I also like what you said about part of being a mixed martial artist is kind of putting the artistic flair. Like what is your style? That's what I mean. All sports have style. You can't look at a sport and not see a certain level of style that each person uses. Even the very best have slightly different styles. Talk about what set up that rear naked choke. You were kind of into the second round. What set that up, and when did you know that you had it? I know a jiu-jitsu guy like you, you've gotten thousands of rear naked chokes, both for and against you. Like that's the one thing
Yeah.
you constantly roll. You're going to constantly catch and be caught with it. It's a very important one to know how to get and how to get out of. So kind of walk us through the setup there, and when did you know that you were going to get your debut pro win by submission, which has to feel really good?
Yeah. I didn't think I would take it to the ground, but he set up a very, very good takedown when I was in southpaw. I had shifted from orthodox to southpaw, landed a shot to the body, and I saw him wince, and I was like, okay, it's over. So he turned into a wrestler. He got me down with a good takedown. I'll give him that. I threw up the triangle, almost had it. Yet again, something else I do have to work on. You never stop working on anything, of course. But I had pushed him off. Technical stand up to a single head inside, got him up against the fence, took him off the fence, ran the pipe, and he had turned his back to me as if he tried to get me in a bulldog choke. And I knew I was safe. My chin was tucked, my posture was strong, and I got my hooks in, and I had taken his back. I had originally, before I sunk in the rear naked, I actually went for reverse guillotine, I believe. I just something that we practice at Immortal, and something fancy, I guess. But after that, he had poked his head back out, and I just got my right arm in, palm to palm, got the body lock, went to the right side, and finished it there. And yet again, going back to what Coleman, Matt, and everybody that I train with says, just dominate every single aspect. I may be a striker, or I may want to keep it on the feet more, but if you take me down or get me into a position on the ground, there's another thing coming for you, I swear.
Well, that's again, you're connecting back to Matt the Immortal Brown, hence Immortal MMA. But good coaching leads to good results. Obviously, good training, good
Absolutely.
sparring. But another thing that's interesting is you said that you're hoping to be fighting for LFA in May. And what's cool about your debut win pro level being by rear naked choke is somebody that just checks out your record real quick on Tapology may make the belief that, oh, you're going to try to shoot, take it down, and submit. So it's almost to your benefit that your first win was by submission, because to your point, you would kind of rather be standing, striking. And if your first win was by a knockout, then more people, without really knowing you, more people would be like, oh, I got to get it to the ground. So it's interesting that it looks more like you're dominant on the ground, but like to your point, you're trying to be dominant everywhere. What do you want out of the fight in May? You've crossed your fingers a couple of times, so obviously that's what you want to have happen. What has to go right for that LFA fight in May to happen?
No injuries, just training as much as I can. I'm gonna go back home to Oahu, Hawaii, visit some family, get back family time, much needed family time, and keep training while I'm out there. And yeah, just hopefully no injuries. And then Hunter actually reached out to me as well from 247. So we'll see. We'll see. Maybe I'll do a quick turnaround. But yet again, just happen to be doing anything.
Well, absolutely. Like you said, you've got plans to keep training, but also to visit family, which is super important to recharge because you had put in a long stretch finishing up your amateur career, trying to turn pro before the end of the year and then having to turn pro at the beginning of 2023. But obviously it's a pretty spectacular way to start off the year. You mentioned 247. We haven't gotten to see you fight for 247 fighting championships. It would be great. You mentioned the GM Hunter. It would be great if you could get on. They have a card in April and July. It sounded like you were mentioning more of the, I think if I just revealed a date that I shouldn't have, I apologize. The April card has been announced April 15th, which is tax day. So yay. But April 15th, it's going to be an absolute incredible card at the Meadows Casino. And that card's announced. There's already fights that are getting announced for it. So I'm not sure because I don't get the behind the scenes and I don't really want to. I get to go to the fights and call them. But I don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. So it would be great to see you in person, fight for 247. Whatever you end up doing would be incredible. LFA has a great name. I think 247's name and importance is really growing since Kama went to the UFC and John DeJesus went to Bellator, and now they've got a 145-pound champ. I call him Handsome, but his technical nickname is the Wolverine, Ethan the Wolverine Goss. And he's going to go someplace big potentially if he gets the April 15th win. So I can't wait to see what's next for you. You started off your pro career as good as you could possibly have hoped for. Thanks so much for coming on. And for people that are out there checking out Josh, I look forward to having you back on many times in the future to follow your career. You've been listening to Luke Payson from MMA Fancast with the Flyin Hawaiian. Thanks so much.